Welcome back to the Good Dad podcast. I'm Jordan.
And I am Ben. And today's guest is Pete Campbell.
What's going on, guys? So glad to be here.
You did it to me like 2 weeks ago, so I get to do it to you.
Oh, no. Hey, but I was really kind to you.
You were.
Except for the final edit. I changed your voice on one
You
of
did.
them.
He made me sound even more high-pitched.
I know, I watched. It was awesome.
Dude, I'm excited to have Pete on. Pete and I go back several years. He said it on his, so I had to say it on mine. We were at the same church together. He was one of our pastors there. And quickly, people... God bless people, but instantly would be like, oh my gosh, you guys are brothers, because we're like the only half Asian ones in the church.
It's because we live in Orange County.
Dude,
it's because of all the white people in Orange County.
Seriously, so right away.
Especially Costa Mesa.
Dude.
Yeah.
Right away. Oh, is that your brother? Is that your cousin? Numerous times he had people call him like me or think he was me, and I had people think that I was him, because we also had the same, like higher fade, clean cut. And again, 2 half Asian dudes running around the church. So there's numerous moments of that, which I thought was hilarious.
A lot of them. I lost count. I honestly should have kept track of it. That way I could make some money off of it.
We should have made a couple shirts that literally had like our faces on them.
Do the Step Brothers, but just in your guys' face.
Yeah. But no, I've known Pete for a long time. He genuinely is a good dude and a good dad. Excited to have you share your story.
Yeah.
He allowed me to share some of my story on his podcast, Purpose Department. We'll tag that. But what was dope about your podcast, dude, is it's you and your son.
Yeah.
Which is so cool. Like Jordan and I talk about this all the time, but having young kids as dads, right? We're looking forward to those moments. Like we're already so excited with little things that our kids are doing. Obviously you're ahead of us, but you have a young son too.
Yeah, we started over again. God has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
So all because I love my wife.
Oh man, but it was just so cool to be able to see your little boy that I remember as being a little boy is now a high school young man doing a podcast with his dad, which I think is so cool. And for me, it was more about just. I think the content that you're wanting to create is very similar to what we are. We're just kind of narrowing it down to more of a dude and dad figure. But like having a purpose and finding your purpose and knowing what that is not always going to look the way we think it is.
Definitely not.
And that's one thing that we're so excited about is for, to have guests like you to share. And because we don't all come from the same thing. We might all be in similar life situations now, but we all didn't come from the same the same everything. And so tell us a little bit about yourself and we'll kind of get after it.
Yeah, so a little bit about myself. Been here in California for quite a few years and love our relationship and what we've been able to do, and so glad to be here. A little bit about myself. I was originally born in Hawaii. So this is the closest living-wise to the islands that I've been since I was 10 years old when I left. And then my wife and I, we just celebrated 19 years in May. I've got 3 kids. No one thinks I'm that old. And like even last night I was at a function and they were like, wait, how old is your son? 14? And they were like, you can't be. No, you can't. I'm like, yes, I'm 41. They're like, gee, golly. So it's part of those Asian genes. If you eat enough rice, it tends to keep you young.
It does.
But, I've got 3 kids. So I've got a 14-year-old son, which you've alluded to, and then my 11-year-old daughter, who I say is going on 21. Help me, Jesus. And then I have what I say is God's sense of humor. I can't use that for too much longer, but he's 4.5, and his name's Makai, and he's just a ball of energy, man. I was thinking third kid would be nice and easy, and he's everything but that. So... and I'm older, so my energy tank is lower than what it was with the other 2, and it's like crazy. And then, but loving life and doing all the things right now. I am, I was in full-time ministry for 19 years, and then the beginning of this year stepped out and continuing to build my my business as an entrepreneur, working as a content creator. More as a creative agency, working with a lot of different types of people and stuff like that here in Orange County and abroad. And then also just like, doing the podcast, speaking and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. He's a great speaker. I'll never forget one of your messages. I think you called it Dark Room.
Yeah.
Dark Room. That was a good one. But I could see how that's fitting for you. But I want to jump into kind of your childhood.
Yeah.
And have you kind of just walk us through like how you were brought up, and we'll go and ask questions from that.
Okay. Yeah. So, born in Honolulu, Hawaii. My name is Peter Daniel Campbell Jr. And that's all I know of my dad. So my dad left when I was, what my mom says, my dad left when I was 2 years old. I don't remember what he looks like. I don't know any of his personality traits. I've got an Asian mom, and so sometimes the stories kind of go here and go there, and it's full with just a lot of different things. But there was also a point in time where I've never actually even seen an actual photo of him.
Dang.
So I don't know anything about my family's history on my dad's side. But then my mom's side is also complicated as well, because she's originally from Vietnam, and so she came to the States during the war time, all those different things. And so there's literally all of that family lineage and the stories that, as a kid growing up, you kind of stand on, and it helps kind of pave the way for you with dreams and things to be proud of and things to learn from. Like, I didn't have any of that. So at the age of 2, my dad left. So grew up in a single parent home. And then from there, at the age of like 7, 8, my mom met a guy. He was a former military. He was in the Marines. And he brought all of his life with it as well. Ended up moving in. So I was so desperate as a young kid, as a young boy, to have a family that was represented on TV. You'd watch like Family Matters and all these different things. And I always desired, I want to have a family. I want to have, all these different things. Go on a vacation, you name it. Even have a sibling, like have brothers and sisters. And none of that was ever a part of my reality. But in going through all of those different things, as he moved in, I just started calling him dad. They weren't married yet. They were still dating. He had just moved in. But I was so hungry and desperate to have that figure in my life that I could glean from, that I can spend time with, that I can build memories with, all those different things, right? And just have fun and be a kid. Didn't have all of that. And so they dated for a little while. In that same process, at the age of 10, he was former military, but then at that time, this was in the early 90s, he was involved with, money was hard. We lived on the islands. Cost of living is expensive, just like here it is in California. He was involved for work. He was involved in drug smuggling, and that was when you can actually put it on your body, on your person, make it through airport security, unless they decided to call you out and pat you down, different things like that. And he was involved in drug smuggling, doing cocaine. He was a heavy alcoholic. My mom ended up becoming alcoholic, and even as a little kid, I grew up in a single bedroom apartment on the island, and so I'm sleeping on a couch or a futon, and having arguments, having them, fight, like all of these different things because they were drunk, because money was tight, like all, you name it. And so when finally push came to shove, it was my mom and him kind of hit this crossroads where they kind of came to a T in the road and was like, we have to make a decision. So then he was like, you know what, I need to go ahead and get out of this. But at that time, and I would imagine it's even the same today, when you're in that type of circle, in that type of group, they're not going to let you out.
Yeah.
So he was like, let me figure out how to do this. So he had family that was on the East Coast. So then he went to the East Coast. And then in a matter of 2 weeks, my mom and I then sold practically everything that we had. And then whatever we did have, if it could fit in a Ford Aerostar van, we packed it in there, put it on a boat, and then in the midst of all of that, this was all super quick once the decision came. And in that same time, with us moving out of our apartment and then living with my mom's family member, like a family member of my mom's side, we had death threats. I remember as a little kid coming home from school, and there was like blood on the door, there was a note, and all these different things. And so we booked out of there, stayed with my grandparent, my mom's kind of like adoptive grandparent type stuff. And then from there, we went from Hawaiian paradise at the age of 10 to Amish paradise and moved all the way to Pennsylvania, and so going through that type of stuff. And then after we did that, they were trying to get sober, trying to get their life straight. They got married, but then the marriage only lasted for about 1.5 years. They divorced. And then that was what really sent me into a tailspin, as a preteen. Got involved with the wrong people, ended up making, some bad relationships that weren't fitting for me. And all the while, My mom came to know who Jesus was. You know, faith really became part of the foundation of her life. Wasn't really much of mine. I was too upset, too angry, too frustrated at what I didn't have and what I desired, and felt a disconnect that I was good enough to be able to put on a mask and kind of live two different lives. So my mom started going to church. Sure, I'd be the good teenage boy, the respectful kid, you know, Pete, who loves people, which I honestly do. But then I got out of there, and then it was like totally different side of me. And in that same process, then, you know, at the age of 12, 13, got involved with some more wrong people, made some bad decisions, ended up spending a year of my life in juvie, you know, so it was the whole 9 yards, you know. And then at the age of 13, 14, then I ended up meeting a guy who really stepped into my life and helped in a lot of ways. He was out of church and stuff, and he was a pastor on staff, and ended up becoming that spiritual father figure that God ultimately used to help radically shift things in my life. But it took a whole lot of, like, a lot of pressure. There was definitely a lot of, you know, just tension, all those different things to really just get myself into a place where I could then, instead of trying to grab onto everything so hard with what I needed and with all my feelings and my emotions and different things, brought me to a place where I could finally let go. You know, so that's just a little bit of it in a nutshell, you know?
No, I think what's cool is, I mean, obviously I've heard like most of it. Not, I actually didn't know some of those details.
Yeah.
But I think what is such a cool perspective to have, in something that we kind of said right before we started recording, but what I think is valuable in the things we're trying to do with this podcast, with your podcast, and, you know, again, finding purpose and being a good dude and a good dad, is there's so many people out there that would look at you today, right? You were a full-time ministry, a pastor for 19 years.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what it's like to deal with real life. You have life on a pedestal. You have God this, God that. And yes, we do have that, but it's because we choose it. But I think what I want people to not miss is, man, you had a gnarly childhood.
Yeah.
You have every excuse to, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but to play like the daddy issue card, right? Like, my wife and I talk about it. She could have every excuse to have daddy issues. And yet she chooses to not let that be any part of her identity, except for shielding our children and the people that are, you know, close to us, our family and our friends that we love, on what not to do and what not to experience and what it is like to go through what you went through. How do you now, having 3 kids and being full-time ministry, you're not anymore, but I think your life is your ministry.
Yeah.
But what do you do now to ensure those things you went through will never happen to your children?
Well, I definitely think there was times in my past. So as I came to the realization of, oh, wow, these were the things that shaped me, or these were the things that left imprints on my life. One, I had to come to grips with what forgiveness really meant, and understanding that the power of forgiveness really lies in my hands, that ultimately whoever my dad was, my childhood, you know, even my stepdad, all those different things, like, I had to come to a point where I forgave, even if I didn't get an apology.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, all of the different things now, it's, I have to remember all of those different moments are like monuments where I can, as I'm going through every single day, I can, if something comes up, it'll kind of just bring to my memory of, hey, these are the things that I've made it past, that I've overcome, that I've won, and then use those to continue to give me the reminder of, like, that I'm not doing this on my own.
Yeah.
You know, none of the strength that I have, because, I mean, right, I've been married 19 years. I still have moments where little things will kind of rub me, and I have to then figure out, ooh, what's triggering me? Yeah. You know, why is that insecurity wanting to fight so strong right now? And I got to let it go. I got to get rid of it. I got to, you know, take that thought captive, whatever it might be, and surrender it and say, dude, this is on my own. If I let those things grow and fester, like, it's going to take me down a road that I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And so there are multiple times in my life where I've drawn the line in the sand and I've made vows, I've made promises, I've made commitments. I've failed on some of them, but yet God has given me the strength to keep making those, to keep drawing those lines.
Yeah.
Because it's more than just me.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I have to remember.
When you moved to Pennsylvania, what age were you when you started to realize, or when you said you had that mentor come into your life? What age was that at?
I was like 13.
13?
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to understand the forgiveness that needed to be done? Like, that would be something that's, I feel like a loaded question.
I think it came in waves, or it was kind of like it came in waves, like ocean sets, of waves that come in. There were different levels of forgiveness, and I thought I was good. Honestly, I thought I was pretty good up until the age of 27 in 2009, 2010. So I'd been married, right? So I came to the 10 years old. It was 1992, and then I gave my life to Christ as a teenager and got married in 2005. So everything was good. And bro, 2010, my son, my firstborn, is about to come into the picture, and all of this stuff came back.
Mm.
And it was a lot of those insecurities, those thoughts that plagued my mind in a lot of ways. At 27 years old, I'm like, I'm not having a midlife crisis, but holy cow, where is all this stuff coming from? I thought I had moved past that. I thought I had grown past that. I had forgiven all those different things, but then I realized, hey, these fingerprints, these impressions, these scars that I have, because now there's new things that are putting pressure on it.
Yeah.
That's where now I've got to recognize the pain points or the pressure or what's happening and what is it stirring up within my life. That's just settled because I've been doing my job, because I've been living my life, because I've been learning what it means to be a husband that serves my wife, learning what it means to eventually have a family, to be in ministry, all these different things. And then finally having my firstborn come into the picture, I was plagued and all the thoughts of, you're not going to be a good dad. Watch, something's going to happen. You're going to abandon him too.
Yeah.
Like all these thoughts. And I was like, who in the heck is even speaking these things?
Yeah.
I was like, that's not my inside voice. I know what my inside voice sounds like.
Yeah.
You know? So it was all of those things that eventually I had to, once again, learn how to surrender. I had to open myself up and be vulnerable with people that I wanted to model my life after or glean what I loved from.
Yeah.
And understand, like, Pete, in order for you to make it past this, God has to be first off foundation, my wife. But then there's people that will come along my life that I really need to kind of stay close to.
Yeah.
Because there's some good things I'm going to be able to pick up.
And that's something I wanted to allude to, but the question of, for me, it's very easy, and for Jordan's dad was on our podcast, and so, people got to hear what it was like in that dynamic, him raising his son and the lessons that Jordan's talked about on this podcast and the lessons that he uses in his daily life. And I had an amazing father growing up, and he's, what I learned, or who taught me how to be a man, how to be responsible, how to do all these things.
Yeah.
And then, my wife didn't have that. She had a bunch of other male figures in her life, uncles and her grandfather who acted as her father, who was an incredible man. But for a man, it would make total sense that as you're having your first kid to come through and have a bunch of doubts and insecurities, because for lack of better terms, like, you didn't have an example of that growing up.
I didn't have the example, and I didn't even have the right things to cause agitation in my life to stir those things up to the surface so that I can clean it.
Well, it's not even your first child. Like, I was talking to a buddy of mine who has a couple girls, and they're trying to for their third, and he was like, I'm terrified of having a boy. And it's because he had a very absentee father that, just floated in and out of his life and just wreaked havoc the entire time. And he goes, I know how to raise and I know how to deal with girls because that's what I grew up with. But a boy, I don't know what to do with that. And he's like, will I end up like my dad? And I was like, I was kind of taken back for a moment, and I was like, man, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't have the answers for those. Yeah. I was like, the only thing I can think of is like what you were alluding to. I was like, grab hold of somebody that's a boy dad that you'd want to model your life after, we don't have to. This is what I love about this podcast, and this is what I love about your story, right? Is that you don't have to have it. This is becoming a resource for people, right? You don't have to have a dad to be a great dad. You don't have to have a present dad to be a great dad. You can have an amazing dad and still be a great dad. And it's like, find other men that you can hold on to and that you can partner in life with, and that can help you through those times. And it sounded like that's kind of what you found at not even a dad, but just like a father figure at 13.
Yeah.
And just kind of helped you shape manhood, it sounded like, right? Is that kind of what he did for you? Or
Yeah, he shaped what it looked like for me to just accept love without trying to feel like I had to earn it.
Ooh.
And that as a young teenage kid, I didn't need to have man's affirmation either to say, hey, I'm proud of you. Sorry. Yeah, so it just, all those different types of things that I really had to learn. And then once again, it came in waves. And depending on what lens I was looking at life through or how I was navigating my life, I'm seeing it differently.
Yeah.
Like the value set is right. The root of it is where it needs to be. But man, it has a whole lot of different meaning to it. It has a whole lot more weight to it. And that's what I'm learning throughout my life. And the other part of it is like, wow, in my own flesh, I could be so overwhelmed and feel so inadequate. But then this is where the faith side of it for me comes in, where it's like, God, I'm thankful that you're the one who helps carry the weight.
Yeah.
So because of him, now I can learn what it means to be a good dude and a good dad, like type thing. You know what I mean? And to just be present.
Yeah.
And all that type of stuff.
So at 27, when you had Jaden, and you had those doubts and these fears, right? Because the enemy uses these moments to get at us, right? And you're saying like, whose voice was that? And for non-believers, you might not understand it, but there is a spiritual component and a spiritual warfare that happens, and it's real. There's no way you can tell me it's not. It is real, and those are those voices. Those are those thoughts. Yeah. What were you able to do to kind of silence them? I know you had your faith, but like, what did you do to be able to? Because, dude, if I didn't know you or know any of this like about you, like to see you as the man that you are and the father that you are, there's no way in this planet I'd be like, oh yeah, that dude didn't have a normal, for lack of better terms, normal childhood, right?
Or a good upbringing, or whatever it might be. Yeah.
Case in point, like I don't know you all that well, and I listened to that first podcast you did with your son and your daughter, and I was like, dude, what an awesome dad, what a great experience. And then you're telling me this, I'm like, what?
Yeah, like he didn't learn it from somewhere. Like it's like, different when you're growing up learning it. Like you could see similarities in your kids that they picked up from you and from your wife. They picked those up because they see it. You weren't intentionally trying to teach them that, but they're sponges. They're creatures of habit. They're creatures of watching and listening, and you can literally see it in the way Jaden is now with you. Like it's this innate ability to learn and nurture.
Yeah.
But when you don't have that as a child, it's obviously hard to, I think, I don't want to use the word teach that, but
there's no reference point.
Yeah. So, like what did you do? I mean, and that's such a loaded question, and I know that, it's an ongoing process, but for a listener out there, if they're in your same spot and they're maybe going to be a first-time parent, a dad or a mom, and had, a different upbringing and didn't have the quote-unquote normal, like, mom and dad in the home and loving, nurturing, like, what did you do, and what would you encourage people with that?
Well, I think the first thing is I would just start. So don't use all of the should haves or all of the different things that are stacked against you, but just find a place, where can I take a first step, right? I often believe, especially when it comes to your story and everyone's story and what your past and all those different things are, like your past, it doesn't define you, right? We know that there's so many different T-shirts and whatever you want to call it with that. But the idea of just starting, and then when you're stepping out, like and finding your purpose needs to be created, and it's created through action, right? And so what are the action steps that you can take now, and start doing those? And if it's one small win, if it's just battling even your own thoughts.
Yeah.
Hey, those are wins when you're not giving into them or when you're not entertaining them. So whatever it is, start small and just start taking just one step at a time. And then the other one, like for me, because of everything of my past and how I had to navigate all those different things, one of the things that I felt like God helped give me was a perspective just with gratitude. So to always find ways to be grateful. Mm-hmm. I think it's easy to feel like you've been handed the short end of the straw or be shortchanged and all those different things in life when you don't have all of that stuff because you're focusing on it. But if I can find out and fix my eyes on the things that I'm grateful for, at the opportunities that I have, that I'm here in California, like whatever it might be, that we've got sunshine, like whatever it is, man, I had a good meal today.
Yeah.
Or, oh, dude, I actually met somebody, we had a great conversation and they were really encouraging and just truthful, but they were loving it. Like, it was cool. There was something different about it. And just honestly, in my own internal mindset and stuff, just express gratitude from it. Like, those are the big things. So just keep taking small steps forward, keep making progress. And then the other one is build up a culture, build up a value set and a mindset of just framing everything with gratitude. Because it's no matter what may come your way, if you're grateful that you have the opportunity to even stand against it or to come face to face with it and fight it, then heck yeah, like let's just go for it. I'm grateful that I can do that. And if I don't have the strength for it, then find other people that you can just be vulnerable with, ones that you can actually trust, right? We've had those moments before too. But find people that you can trust and more importantly, just keep talking to God. I'm one of those types of guys that I've had my moments with God, and some people may say differently of different things, but like I've had moments where I've cussed God out and been like, what the heck, dude? Yeah. Like, why again? A lot of those moments, like, really, again? Yeah. What else do I need to learn now? All those moments. But I know, like, God is big enough, he's graceful enough, he's full of mercy and love, that it doesn't matter as long as I keep approaching him, And so those are the value sets that in my life that I honestly exercise. I try to exercise every day.
Yeah.
I love that you shared that. Without knowing, that's something my dad shared too, because he had talked about when we went through a very rough time. He was like, I literally shaved my head and I said, God, I love you, but I don't want to talk to you right now. And I was like, that's one thing I love, like about true, it sounds horrible, but true Christians, like if you're like legitimately walking out your faith, you'll be open and honest with those moments. Cause it's like, I feel like Christianity too can get this like Instagram type feel where it's like, nah, man, everything's highs, no lows. Everything's great. Hallelujah. Praise God. I'm doing great. Thanks. It's all for a purpose. And it's like, yeah, it's true. It is all for a purpose, but there's moments where you're just like, this freaking sucks. And I'm like, and I'm not happy. Like, this is not part of the plan that I thought you were going to have for me. In fact, I thought we were going over here. Now you put me over here and I feel like I'm in a hole when I'm supposed to be on a mountaintop. And I'm like, what the heck, man? And so I love that you're open and honest about that and share it I just shared that. That was incredible.
Well, I know as a dad for me, right, with my 3 kids, I've had to, because there was lots of moments in my life where I felt like I needed to try and fix things.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah. Because I was having to figure out how to survive just on my own. Like, if nothing's going to happen the way that I need it to or that I feel like it should go, I'm going to make it. Mm-hmm. But as I've grown in being a dad, I've had to surrender that type of, and like that reflex, that initial response with my kids. And I've even had to come into moments where it's like, no, I got to let them feel it.
Yeah.
I got to let them now navigate. Because ultimately, in my own life, and this is what my wife and I, Sarah, we talk about all the time, it's like, we go through, we pray about certain things. Okay, what is God doing? Or what are the obstacles and challenges that we're facing in life, maybe finances or whatever it is. And then when we're at the right point and we've processed it enough, we bring our kids into the mix. Because ultimately, I want them to learn, like, they hear the stories of what dad had to go through and growing up. But now I want them to learn and see what does the process look like as we navigate these different things in life, so that ultimately for me, I don't want to just impart things into my kids, but I want them to take ownership of the stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we've done it,
Yeah.
in our lives and in our home and different things there. So
I think that's a lesson though that you wouldn't have probably been able to teach or instill and impart on your children if you didn't go through what you went through.
yeah,
Right? Like the past does not define us,
right.
but it can shape us. And if we let things in our past define the way we choose to react to things, I think that is what life is about. That's what being a Christian is about. And that's what being, living out your faith and being a believer is about, right? Like we've all had those moments if you have had faith of any sort where you're pissed off, you're angry, you don't get it. Why me? Why this? Like we've all gone through it. And, my answer to that now of like having to live out my past and to figure out who I am as a man is like if we were if we knew all these answers and we had all these choices like defined and cleared and pathways like illuminated for us, then why would there be a need for a God?
Yeah.
There really wouldn't, right? Like we would be God
Right.
at that point. We would control our own everything. And I'm a big believer in, obviously like God has a plan, but God's also given us brains to use and choices to make. And there's going to be consequences, good or bad. And dude, I love your story, especially because you were in ministry. In my opinion, and this is not a dig at anybody, but I think I might have said it on your podcast, but maybe I didn't. My story of growing up in a church as like a good kid, like, good cut, clean kid, going through the Marine Corps, doing all the right things, right? And then coming back as this freaking Tasmanian devil and like just reaping havoc everywhere I went. I am so thankful I have that in my quote unquote spiritual tool belt, because I feel like I have the ability to resonate with more people now because I didn't have your typical cookie cutter life. And again, it's not a dig at people that have.
Right.
But I think for you, I think one of the reasons, man, that God has blessed you in your abilities to be able to reach people is because you endured and went through so much turmoil. And again, you could have just lied down, played the card, and just continued that cycle. You could have continued that cycle to your own children, right? But you broke a cycle. That cycle that we've heard about that, that can last generations, you broke that crap. And now your kids will never know or never doubt or have to question, did my dad love me?
Yeah.
Was I good enough for him? Was he present? And that's going to lead us into our next question that we asked. But with all of the stuff you've gone through in your life and in your mind and in your definition, what is being a good dude and a good dad?
Being a good dude and a good dad, just being, I guess I would just say, I really like this terminology. It's the acronym of just HOT, honest, open, and transparent.
All right. I have actually never heard that.
I love that.
Yeah. I like that.
Because, and this is part of with us, having faith circles and having, a spiritual foundation in God. And because of my faith, I know I can make it through. But I also want my kids to understand, like, it's because of their faith, they're going to be able to make it, and life will try to crush them. It's not always going to be sugar-coated or going to be smooth sailing. Like, they're going to hit rough seas. Mm-hmm. And so if I can model that to them, and like I said, model that to them so that they can then take ownership and it becomes personal for themselves.
Yeah.
That's the way I want to live. Because I look at the Bible and like in the Old Testament, you have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and we're talking these three lines, 3 generations. God made a specific promise to Abraham, But then the further you get down from it, that promise that God made to Abraham wasn't the promise he made to Jacob.
Yeah.
And it's like, at what point through my legacy, through my life, through who comes after me, especially with my own blood and my own family, or even if you're adopted, whatever it might be, it's like, where does the ownership come in? And so for me, in everything that I do, it's part of my value set. Like, this is what I want people to see, so that they can see the struggle, they can see the tension points, they can see just how did you even come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
There are some points of it, it's like, hey, I don't even know, bud, but it's just through my faith, because I know God is going to do it. I can't give you the specific answers, but I'm at a point where in my life where I just know.
I've seen it enough.
I've seen it enough. And hopefully you seeing that will help build bricks and a foundation in your life that when you get to that moment, you recognize it too. You know?
I can tell you from personal experience of a father who fathered like that,
Yeah.
your son will see it.
Yeah.
Because I've pulled from it, from my dad.
Yeah.
So I can tell you now, being on your son's side, on the other end, he's going to see it and he's going to pull from it.
Yeah.
Because I've talked about it here.
Yeah.
One last question for you, because, I mean, coming all out of this, right, now let's look 100 years in the future, 200 years in the future. Like, what do you want? No, it's like, what do you want your legacy to be with your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids?
I think, I mean, there's the emotional side of it. I want them to know that, I guess because of God moving and flowing and working through my life, they would see just the process of learning how to prioritize the things that really matter. And then no matter what happens in life, they would find a reason to smile or to laugh and have joy, right? Not just happiness.
Yeah.
Happiness is very conditional, but joy, it's really a choice. And so those are the things that I want, so that, and then to understand too, like, hey, who you get to do life with, it really matters. And that's all, that's really the gift, that I think about. And so those are the things I guess I would just say.
I just want to say, man, it's really cool. I mean, they talk about, the entire time you're talking about this, it reminded me of the story about the 4-minute mile. Everybody thought it was impossible, right? You'll die if you do a 4-minute mile. And then one guy did the 4-minute mile. And then in that year, it was like, I don't know, just an absurd amount of people broke the 4-minute mile. And it really only takes one. Mm-hmm. And like, it's very clear that like in your story, in your lineage, you are the one. And it only takes one to set that pace of being a good father and being a good dude to me, and good dad. That part is cheesy, but
I know what you mean.
You were the one in your family to set that lineage, and now other people get to pull from you as an example. You might not have had that example, but now you get to be the cornerstone, the rock of your future generations, man. So that's, I mean, it's going to be, your impact, I can already tell you now, is going to last far beyond your lifetime and your kids' lifetimes. That's for sure.
And you have great kids.
I do. I love all of them, man.
You have great kids, but that's because they have great parents. And I'm not saying you can't be a great kid if you don't have great parents, but it makes it a lot easier to do that, especially in today's craziness. But dude, I'm super thankful for you. I love that. I just love your willingness to share. And again, you and I have known each other for a long time, through good times of like a quote unquote like church life, like rough times, transitional times. And you said something similar to me, but I can also genuinely say it back to you of, you've always been you in all circumstances, and you've always conducted yourself as, the leader, the mentor, the for lack of better terms, like strong-willed individual that had to figure things out. Like, you live that. And I think that right there is a legacy, right? People that know you, your kids, your future grandkids, like if they get the opportunity and the chance to know you, like that's what legacies are built off of. Legacies are watched, they're earned, and you live it, dude. And it's been cool to continue our friendship in that way. And I think it's the biggest compliment someone can receive is you are who you say you are. And, you know, you get to see that, and it's not microphones, recordings, and podcasts, right? But that's what's given you the ability and the platform to even want to do that, because you are actually genuinely living it out. There's a lot of fluff and a lot of stupidity out there, and a lot of people that act one way, but the second these lights turn off, they're an a-hole. You know, for lack of better terms.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I think it's one of the biggest honors like that you could give somebody, and like the biggest compliment of you are who you say you are, for good or bad. You are who you say you are. You know, and I appreciate you. Make sure that you guys go to his podcast, The Purpose Department. We'll put it in our whatever that thing's called. Yeah, show notes thing. Clearly,
Perfect.
I'm not the one that does all this.
Oh, that's good, man. Jordan, you're the man.
That's why I don't ask a lot of questions. I just sit here.
He does all the back end stuff and then makes me have to talk. But dude, you're the man. Hopefully your story resonates with someone. I already know there's people that we've talked to specifically on this show
100%.
that have had similar upbringings and maybe, you know, would enjoy listening to this and figuring out how you handled it and how you're still handling it. And like I said, I just had a conversation with my wife that she's trying to navigate something too that she didn't know was there. And I'm a fix-it kind of guy, especially with people that I love. And so to see my wife just be in that spot of not knowing what to do, it like pisses me off and I want to fix it. But I literally told her yesterday, I can't do this for you.
Yeah.
I will be there to support you and to guide you if you'd like, help you in whatever way, but you got to do it. And so I think your story will definitely resonate. And we say it all the time, but even if it just helps one person, right? Like that's a win.
Yeah.
But anything else?
No, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, guys. For
You're an excuse eliminator, which is awesome. It just because you might not have had the best upbringing doesn't mean that you can't go on to be a fantastic parent. And I already know of like 5 or 6 guys that I can't wait to share this story with, because I know it's going to help them. So
Say your Instagrams out loud for people that listen.
at Pete Camp, and then you can find everything else because I think the other one's at Purpose Department, but DEPT _ I think, or something like that.
Okay.
But
I mean, we'll put it
I'll
in the
get
notes.
to you.
Yeah, I'll have
We
it.
always like people to say it out loud.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it, my dude.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys, and always so good just sitting in the room with you guys. I've been watching it on the other side, so this is awesome. I love it. Thank you.
Mr. Jordan,
all right.
another good episode, my man.
Thank you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, like, share, subscribe, share it with someone that you think this will benefit. It helps out a ton. Thank you guys.